Today on the show, I have the pleasure of speaking with Johnny Wolff. Now, Johnny is the CEO and founder of HomeRoom Co-Living, one of the fastest growing co-living companies here in the United States. And now, after starting his career as a financial analyst in Silicon Valley, Johnny relocated to Austin, Texas to pursue his real estate investing full-time. Now, his love for real estate investing and living with roommates motivated him to start HomeRoom in 2017. And now, powered by investors' funds, HomeRoom has recently expanded to Dallas and the Austin market. Johnny, I'm really pumped and excited to have you on the show today. So how are you doing today, mate?
Oh, Reed, I'm doing really good. So happy to be here.
Mate, thank you so much. Yeah. But I want to put a bit of an awesome introduction there.
Thanks, man.
Where are you actually calling in from right now?
Kansas City.
You are in Kansas City. Okay, got it.
Yeah, good.
Well, I asked the question for all my guests when they come on the show, and rewind the clock and tell me how you made your first ever dollar as a kid.
Yeah, no, I love that question. I had a lemonade stand when I was, I think, 8 through 10. Every summer, we had a lemon tree in the backyard. I'd make my own lemonade, from scratch. And first year, I made like $30 over the course of the summer. By the third year, I was like going to the store, buying a lot of lemonade, and I'd hired my sisters for like 10 cents an hour. And so I was actually working. I was actually inside. I lived in Sacramento and it was 100 degrees outside. And so I was inside, but the lemonade stand was still working. So I was already outsourcing, I guess, very affordable hourly labor, as a 10-year-old.
That's awesome. Yeah. And walk me through your upbringing. I mentioned earlier in the introduction that you were an analyst in Silicon Valley. And So were you always involved in real estate, or was that analytical job in another field?
It was in a different field. Yeah, I graduated from college in 2007 and spent 10 years in the Silicon Valley as an analyst, working at startups and tech companies. But I also, on the side, kind of my side hustle was working in real estate or buying real estate out of state. So I bought property in 2008 in Texas, bought a couple more while I was an analyst.
Got it. And I mentioned earlier that you actually moved to Austin, Texas. When did you end up moving there?
Yeah, in 2015, I was living in the heart of San Francisco. I was a VP at a bank on like the very top floor. And I was like, the amount of money I was making seemed like a lot, but the prices for real estate in San Francisco are so exorbitant. I just didn't think I could have the life that I wanted. So I did some analysis on the United States and thought Austin's going to be the number one market for real estate appreciation over the next 5 years. Moved there and then just started to buy and house hack like property after property. Yeah.
Did you leave your day job when you moved to Austin?
I did. I was still working kind of on the side for a startup, but I was really focused on real estate.
Right. And obviously Austin is just completely transitioned into its own Silicon Prairie, right? That's the new word. I'm actually heavily invested in Austin as well. I'm actually going to be there next week. But tell me about this whole evolution of co-living, because some people listening out there, they might not even know what the word co-living means. So do you want to break it down for those people who've never heard the term?
Sure. It's like kind of it's an evolution of, the boarding house in a lot of ways. You take kind of Silicon Valley technology and ease, you layer it on top of a property, and then people rent out individual bedrooms, and the common areas are typically furnished. So it's kind of a fusion between a short-term rental and like a standard rental, and kind of combining those with a roommate kind of environment. So you get, you save 30% on rent with co-living as a tenant. And, investors can make up to 70% more rent. So it maximizes the dollars per square feet. So it's a really cool offering for both sides.
So it's nearly like Airbnb, but more rental orientated, right?
Yeah, really. The Airbnb section is the amenities. Usually a co-living house comes with furnished common areas. It comes with, kitchen essentials. So you can move in on day one. You can watch TV. You can, eat. You don't have to bring anything except for your bed.
Got it. I got it.
Yeah.
And where did the history of co-living come from? Because, when I think of my days backpacking around the globe,
Sure.
it sounds like hostels, right? Like you got a common area, everyone's cooking together, no one's cleaning up that pan. It sounds like who would want to live in this co-living space, and how does it become sexy all of a sudden?
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at co-living is it's sort of emerged as kind of the as a piece of the sharing economy that really started with Craigslist in like the early 2000s. And we see, I don't know if you've seen the diagram where it shows like how this whole part of Craigslist, each one of their sections was replaced by an app slowly but surely. And so the roommate section is what co-living has become, because people have been looking for roommates on Craigslist since I was in college. So we've done the math on this, and there's about 500 billion in rent being paid by roommates today. So it's a massive market that's sort of still Craigslist-y, still Facebook Marketplace is where people are finding their roommates most of the time. Co-living is basically saying, hey, what if we just kind of make this just a little bit nicer? Instead of couch surfing, let's do Airbnb, right? Let's have an app. Let's make it safer. Let's raise the standards on what the experience is like. And that's why I think it's taking off, because underneath what co-living is today is like a decade and a half of people looking to live with roommates.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I actually remember back in the day when I moved from Australia to London, I was on, I think it was called findmyroommate.com. It was an old website. I think it was findmyroommate.com. I think that was it. And it was just, you create a profile very early. This was 2008, 2009.
Sure.
And I was £100 a week in a small bedroom that was fully furnished for me, but I would be forced to live with whoever was in that house. Obviously you go around and you try to get a bit of a feel for the person who else is in the house, and any creeps or any weirdos.
You try to ask questions, but you also don't want to come off like too inquisitive, because then they wouldn't like you. Yeah, right. It's really hard. And I think, that's what one of the things that co-living is doing way better, right? So we have a machine learning kind of algorithm that actually looks at these different degrees of compatibility, making sure that the house gets along, making sure the people that are in the house, the new person coming in, it will fit. That can be done a lot better by someone with a lot of data and thought versus like you on Craigslist, just kind of like hoping for the best.
Right. And talk to me a little bit about how they're capturing that type of data, because that's probably really important to having a harmonious relationship. Because I remember living with roommates. We all lived with roommates at one stage. And there's as I mentioned before, there's someone doesn't clean up the bloody pan. It's everyone's waiting for the someone to crack to take out the garbage.
Clean the pan. Yeah.
So how do you use technology to bring it into that element of real estate investing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And, to say that we have that down to a perfect science would be a bit of an exaggeration. There's still pan problems in every roommate situation. We have a few checks and balances though, right? So we have our maids are in there once a month. It's part of the package that all roommates pay for. And so that the house gets a deep clean once a month. And then the maids will actually kind of rate the house for cleanliness. And so if you pass below a certain threshold that's agreed upon in our kind of member agreement, then you actually get dinged and we'll charge you for another maid visit. So there's accountability from us. There's also kind of different ways for the roommates to kind of talk to us about issues, right? And give us feedback. If we hear the house is too dirty, we'll kind of engage. We have kind of a playbook to do that. So we generally stay hands off and let the house define its own culture. But if we find that the culture is twisted and like the pan is just there every time, then we're going to kind of figure out what's going on and kind of when people are on board, we also talk about giving just a little bit more than you take. That means if you see the pan, clean it, right? If you don't know who's doing trash, do it. And so that's something we try to ingrain in people. You can't have a perfect hit rate. You can't change people's like nature, but it is something that's super valuable, that community and giving and serving at HomeRoom.
And talk to me about the type of demographic who's renting in this type of space, because I think that will help define for listeners. Is this just for young people coming out of there, out of college? They've already lived with roommates for a couple of years. This is sort of a step towards independent living in their own one-bedroom apartment at some point in the future.
Yeah, we actually have people in their 50s renting with HomeRoom, but the average age is 27. The average person is a kind of a white collar working professional, but they're all over the board, right? There's people that emerge from, relationships that ended. There's people that emerge from, career changes or other things in life where it's like, hey, I need a place that's flexible. It's a little cheaper. I don't want to get a new house. I don't want to buy. So co-living works for a lot of people in kind of the life stages where they're still kind of deciding on a path.
Mm. And I know within co-living, I've actually got some experience with it. One of my old positions was working for a real estate developer here in Los Angeles, and in neighborhoods where affordability is really hard, like Santa Monica and Venice and Manhattan and San Francisco, as you mentioned earlier, co-living is starting to creep back in because from a development point of view, you can get a lot more efficiency with building 4 bedrooms and 1 kitchen rather than doing 4 1-bedrooms, 1 kitchen apartments, right?
Yes.
And so talk to me about where that's spurred from, because that is definitely a big element of you know, everything about the cost sharing or the co-sharing environment, that tech environment that we're in today has come from a need of wanting to be more efficient with the cost of living, right? Whether it be Uber or whether it be, DoorDash, or whether it be, Amazon delivering your groceries for you. I think this is the rental portion of it, correct?
Yeah. It's just an evolution of the sharing economy that's sort of kind of taken off. What I think we've all kind of realized is like, you don't need to own stuff to be kind of happy. We've actually learned that maybe owning a bunch of stuff makes you less happy. And that if you kind of let technology or a system allow us to all share something that none of us own, it's less of a hassle to maintain it. There's all these different benefits from the sharing economy. Right. It's taken longer than I think most thought for housing to get there. But we're seeing it not just in co-living, we see it with companies like Zeus Living, where you can, or Landing, where you can just live in a specific place that's furnished for 1 month and then just go to another place. But housing is becoming, they're allowing people to kind of cut it into little pieces more often, which is very, very cool, and allows, if you're someone that likes to not be stuck in one place, it's pretty amazing.
And you mentioned Zeus Living just there, because I've always thought of the co-living being the single white collar work from anywhere, particularly with COVID. I want to live in Paris for a month. I want to live in Bali for a month. I want to live in New York for a month. There's that level of it, right? And we can talk about that. Where does your business fall on that spectrum?
Yeah, I think we're in that. We the membership agreement minimum is 3 months at HomeRoom.
Okay.
But you can hit a button in our app and transfer from one room to another room. So you can move from, and that gets more powerful as the network effect grows, as more and more cities get added to we're adding our 5th and 6th city this year. So we've had people go from Kansas City to Austin, which I highly recommend. Austin's very awesome. We've had people move, and so the goal is that we're going to be in 750 cities, in the next 5 years. And then you can pick up and move anywhere. Let's say you have an out-of-state relationship, your job allows you to be fully remote, move to Des Moines, move to San Francisco. So I think that's the magic of co-living. That's the magic of the sharing economy now touching real estate, where you can maybe hit a button and then add furniture to that room so you don't have to furnish it. So it allows, I think as humans, we like to stay put, but when we move, it refreshes the mind and you make new connections. And I think it re-energizes us. It doesn't feel safe, but it kind of throws us into a kind of this new space in which we can kind of achieve way more. And so that's what this new style of living is going to, I think, help people have on a more consistent basis than just going on a random vacation once a year.
Yeah, it's interesting. My dad used to always say to me, a change is as good as a holiday. So when you're changing your environment, you feel energized, invigorated to do more, to explore more, to see your local surroundings. So really awesome. Now let's break it down into the business part of it, like the numbers side of it.
I really like that.
Yeah, I know he's good. I'll give him the credit for that. You can have it on a wall somewhere. Change is good as a holiday. And we can trademark it to Lee Goosens. But let's talk about the numbers of it. Like, how are you going out? What's the size of the property you're trying to, either you're buying or you're doing a master lease? And it sounds like it's a little bit like the WeWorking spaces, the co-working spaces, where a company comes in and takes over a floor and then splits it up into its little cubicles, and you just rent one of those little cubicles. Is that kind of the same idea or are you actually owning the property as well?
We don't own the property. Okay. So the way that HomeRoom works, and we're kind of unique in this way, is that investors can come to us, and maybe they're a real estate investor, maybe they never have, but they have, $75,000 and they say, I want to invest in a property. And we'll say, hey, we actually have data science to help us find a perfect property for co-living, but also a great real estate investment property. And we have a kind of concierge approach where we will help them find the property, And co-living properties have to be unique. They can't just be any property. And then we'll help them buy the property and we'll help them retrofit it for co-living. And then we will actually take over full management, including operations, maintenance. We'll get the tenants inside of it. So we actually will make a percentage, kind of like Airbnb, more than WeWork. So we don't hold master leases. We don't have kind of that risk of having to pay if something happens. We did make it through the pandemic uninjured. We had full occupancy, so it wouldn't have really mattered for us either way. But it's kind of, during the pandemic, I think we saw the difference between office space and residential space. So it was a lot better for us than for those guys. But yeah, we partner with investors to create this. We don't kind of come in and master lease and take all the risk.
Got it. Partner with investors. Interesting. So you're doing single family homes with
exclusively
four bedrooms, 2 baths, sort of. Okay. Got it. Okay.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah. Because I'm more thinking of like brand new build downtown Santa Monica, 20, you're building for spec to a co-living area. It's more of that. Okay. The owner is also then maybe hiring. It sounds like you'll probably get there because I do know that there are other co-living managers out there and
of course.
Offering that sort of globe-trotting lifestyle that I spoke about earlier, Bali, the Paris, the New Yorks of the world. But I think you've got a very interesting model that you partner with the investor. So are you helping them with the investor any type of data in terms of, hey, Johnny, I've got this deal in Des Moines, Iowa. You mentioned that earlier. And it's $100,000. Are you backing into data to say we can support a co-living space here, or no, because of the area or because of the area in the MSA, it just doesn't kind of work. It has to be in certain geographical locations.
Yeah, we're in a lot of kind of marketplaces, which HomeRoom is. We're kind of on both sides and kind of in the middle managing it. Is usually focused on geography by geography. You don't just kind of open up the whole. We have people reach out to us multiple times a week saying, hey, can you add my house to your co-living platform? We're like, we're not in Pittsburgh. We're not in San Francisco. So today we're in San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, and Kansas City. So if someone wants to buy a property there or has a property there, we're happy to take a look. And we can help them do the numbers. We can tell them this is how much you should expect in rent. This is how much you'll have to, invest in the property to kind of make it co-living ready. And we're usually quite accurate with those numbers. Our occupancy is really high. Our team is really good at finding tenants, and we have a data scientist on staff. We have a really great tech team that helps with that as well.
And so within those markets, are you also then looking to be in that path of progress, or does it necessarily matter where it is? Because obviously you wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of the tracks. I'm just, I've got this deal in San Antonio because I know San Antonio really well, but it might be a bit of an area that you might not attract your co-living tenants that you want, who get it, So surely that has to play a part.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a data framework that basically creates a heat map for us where we will do a house, where we won't do a house.
Sure.
So we're generally in nice areas of town. There's Kansas City is probably the market I'm the most familiar with, where it's just like we do not, east of here we don't take houses at all because the murder rate is 100 out of 100. So it's just like when you hear gunshots, 5 times a week, it's too many for us. We're generally we're in every nice area. We're in some in the middle areas, and we're not in areas that are, I guess, what I would consider like dangerous.
Yep, that makes sense. And then from a vetting point of view, you're really acting like a management company, right? I've got obviously a company who goes and looks at income verification and your job references and all that sort of stuff. So how are you going on that side of it? Also with the tech.
Yeah, so I mean this is where the tech kind of helps, right? So I think a lot of property managers, they get too much information because the tech's not supporting it, right? And I think if you ever fill out a rental application, you're like, why is this like 7 pages? So for us, we understand a few key things. We use TransUnion SmartMove to do the background credit and eviction history, so that's crucial. But we actually look at that and we look at career, and that's kind of it. We don't care about income. We don't care about prior landlord experiences, anything. And in the history of our company, we've had over 500 roommate tenants, and we've never had a full deposit used up for damages ever. So it's pretty incredible. Part of it's because I think we're good at screening, but the other part is with co-living, you can't screw up the house because your roommates are there and they live there and they're not going to be super happy and they're kind of your friends. So there's a natural accountability. So it sounds, I think people's intuitive thought is, hey, if we're going to have like 5 young people, they're just going to trash the house. Well, we grade the house for cleanliness monthly, so they can't. And if we find that they jacked it up, they'll have to pay for that. But if one person's like miffed at us or miffed at anything, the only thing they can damage is their room. And it's really difficult to damage a room to the tune of $500 unless you just, burn it down or something. That's never happened to us because, the quality of the tenant's really high. We hold firm on that. And then natural accountability between the on-site visits and their roommates. And
walk me through what's a average room costing you, and then what's the investor getting, and then what are you guys taking? So what's the delta? And then you can talk in percentages if you want. You don't have to give me away all your business.
Oh no, I mean it's no problem. And so it really depends on the city, right? So each city is different. Austin, the price point goes up to $550
a room per month.
Oh, sorry. I was talking about the price of a property. the average price of a room in Kansas City is $440, give or take. Austin would be $650, give or take. And then the range is between there for Dallas and San Antonio.
Got it. And then are you, as an owner, are you taking a delta between that or just charging a management fee on top of that?
We make 15% of all collected rents.
Got it. 15%. That's right. Cool. Awesome. And then expenses and that sort of stuff. I assume we're all in the tenants, water, electricity, gas, obviously a bit of obviously the real estate taxes and insurance would be on the owner, but the sort of the rub.
Yeah, there's none of that stuff's paid for by the owner. It's all paid for by the tenants.
Got it. Awesome.
And the tenants actually pay for the maid service and the yard care.
Awesome.
So it's done professionally. So very
cool. And where do you see the business growing to right now? Obviously you mentioned you have 500 roommate tenants. Where do you want the business to grow to in the next 5 to 10 years?
10 years, definitely want to be global. In the next 5 years, I'd like to be in a majority of the cities of the United States. I think the amount of tenant demand for this type of living in places that people can't imagine. The co-living developments are focused on these super expensive areas, and that's great. And we think Santa Monica, San Francisco, I understand the unit economics of that, and it makes a lot of sense. Single family homes are modular and smaller, and they can actually, to convert, it's not very much money. So you can actually increase your rent as an investor 50 to 100% by converting a home to a co-living home. And that can be in Kansas City. That can be in like Olathe, Kansas. We have like all these little suburbs there's a lot of tenant demand for this kind of living. So we'd like to be everywhere. I think we're the first company that thinks that this approach will work in Des Moines, right? We're the first ones that approached Kansas City and Olathe and Shawnee, all these little Kansas cities that no one would have thought co-living was needed. It's actually very needed. The demand is very high. So our goal is to be nationwide, everywhere, kind of like Airbnb. You open your app, you see the map, you go somewhere, you can live with us.
Got it. And how has it been a bit of a education for the renter in how to, how they're coming into this situation, given that even my situation in the back in the day when I was going on Craigslist and roommate.com or myroommate.com, how is that education piece being on the consumer side?
When we do text-based lease communication with them early, and we make sure that they match our criteria, and then we will do a call with them, a video call ourselves. If they pass that, they go through the TransUnion kind of credits and background check. And then the final step after that's approved is they actually will meet the roommates via video call. So it's all kind of, the whole thing is making sure that every box is checked and that they're going to be a good fit. We're able to do this because we have Matterports of all properties. And so about 80 to 90% of our tenants never see the property in person before they actually will sign a lease and pay the deposit. The first time they've seen the property is when they move in. And I think that approach is super common with hotels. It's super common with Airbnbs. I think it's going to become way more common with standard, real estate. And so we are, kind of on the front lines of doing that. A lot of our leasing team is international as well. So we do fully remote leasing, no in-person tours. And when they do want to see it in person, then a roommate that lives there would give that to them.
God. Do you ever think you're going to lose that interview piece with the other roommates? Because I'm just thinking, like, obviously when Airbnb first came around, everyone was like, oh gosh, what if you trash the place? But now you got, I've as an Airbnb user, I've got a rating, so does the owner. And so it's quickly I'm assuming you're trying to get to that spot where you mass adoption so you can use the community to rate themselves and then, police themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. That is 100%. And we're trying to, that's one of the things that we're looking at very closely. I think one of the challenges is like, it's okay to get a user rating if you're like in an Uber for 20 minutes. It's okay to get a user rating if you're an Airbnb for a weekend. But do you want to live in an environment where everyone's rating you constantly? That's one of the kind of the debates we have at HomeRoom. And the answer is, I don't know that people would like that. I know that I wouldn't. But figuring out a way to make it accountable. And I think what we're going to do is, as someone exits, we give them an up or a down if they can come back. And so that's sort of something we're thinking about. But yeah, there has to be a way in which we can, the maid grades in which the house is graded by the maids every time they go there is like the initial start to that, where it's like, hey, there are standards, you have to hold to them. Otherwise you kind of your power in the community and your kind of esteem in the community goes down, and your ability to get new rooms would go down. So doing that in a way that's not like Big Brother's watching me, my roommates are always rating me because they just got an argument over the dishes, is something that we're still scratching our heads over and working on. Oh, mate,
it sounds super interesting. I think you're a very awesome in technology interface and just having the experience of traveling the world and going right up to new cities and having to figure out that Craigslist thing it's always difficult. So it's kudos to you to try and be figuring that out, because I think it is a powerful way of, it's a need, as you said, I think you said $5 billion in rent, or 500 billion. There's a lot of money in co-living, in roommates, and just trying to capture a little bit of that market share is going to be freaking awesome. And then hopefully you can scale it with, in the single family model. I definitely envisage you doing something slightly different as you grow, but I would love to get you back on the show in a couple of years' time to see how the business has evolved. So well done.
Thanks, man.
And I guess the big thing. What do you need right now from the listeners? Do you need the investors? Do you need the people just trying it out? Do you need people just helping you in any way possible?
Yeah, I mean, we love talking to investors. And that's definitely we actually have a bit of a wait list right now. So today, but our goal is to, the most houses we ever had investors purchase with HomeRoom was 3 as of 6 months ago. And this month we're going to do 17 properties. But the goal is to kind of expand to somewhere near 100 by the end of next year. So we need a lot of investors to be interested and talk to us about this. We think when we look at short-term rentals, long-term rentals, and co-living, to me, co-living combines the best of both of the other two, and just a lot less downside. And so I think it's a killer home run investment that I own a bunch of them myself. So, and it's gone very well for me. So that would be I think the big thing. We'd love to talk to any investors who are looking to purchase in the near future.
Love it, mate. Well, look, at the end of every show, we like to dive into the top 5 investing tips. You ready to get into it?
Let's do it, man. I'm ready.
Question number 1, what's the daily habit you practice to keep on track towards your goals?
Yeah. Number one thing is get up early, go to the gym. I just go 7 days a week, every day, go to the gym. And then I try to listen to a book on tape while I'm doing that. So those are kind of the 2 things that I do.
Awesome stuff. Question number 2 is, who is the most influential person in your career to date?
Most influential person is my boss, Liza Lee from Electronic Arts. She was my boss. She got promoted 3 times in like a tech in the Silicon Valley in like 3 years while having a baby. So she's a star. But she taught me about adaptability, creativity, while still I was doing finance, and it kind of changed the way I work.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Liza. Question number 3 is, what is the most influential tool in your business? When I say tool, it could be a physical tool like a phone or a journal, or it could be a piece of software. What is it?
Microsoft Excel. I know that's boring, but yeah, that's kind of my superpower. I can use that better than most. So, being an Excel junkie, you need to have some sort of skills on Excel to get into real estate investing. Just, bad news for everyone listening. If you don't like Excel, you've got to get used to some element of Excel. Yeah. I do training classes and stuff. But at a certain level, like I started and have run the business for Microsoft Excel for the last 3 years. So it's been pretty incredible for us.
That's awesome. Yeah. Question number 4 is, in one sentence, what has been the biggest failure in your career? What did you learn from that failure?
What's been biggest failure? Biggest failure. Ooh. Yeah. So I think, when we started, when I started the company, I thought that it would go faster and easier. And so I brought in, 5 people. I emptied my retirement account and sold one of my properties to get it started. And I was like, here we go. And, within 6 months, I had to let go everyone go, and I had to run it by myself. So I think humility maybe from that. I think learning about what's around the corner is probably less. I think embracing having patience for that early grind and really figuring out how to make it work without trying to throw money to accelerate something. I think it's great to get investors. We're taking on angel investment right now. We're doing a VC round in the spring. But if you try to add money doesn't solve any of your problems. It actually compounds them, because you try to solve the problems with money, then the money's gone and now you don't have any solutions. So I think that's the biggest solution or biggest thing that I learned. You can't solve brain problems with money almost ever. Yeah.
I think it's also very a good reflection on startup culture. Like when you're starting your own business as an entrepreneur, you got to do everything yourself. You are the CFO. You are the investor relations. Sure. You are the CEO. You got to do the crappy stuff that you don't like to do, and that helps build. You have a very tight bandwidth then, because you're not being overexposed with payroll or office space. And it's not until you get a little bit of runs under your belt, a little bit of money coming in, you can say, okay, hey, I can go out and outsource XYZ. So yeah,
and like when you're the team of one, you can almost do as much as 5 or 6 people, because there's no one to talk to. There's no meetings. You can just kind of execute. Right. And so when I went down to a team of one, we were more successful almost immediately, which didn't make a lot of sense. But building a deep proficiency yourself before trying to scale the product and the team, especially on your first startup. I think if it's my second startup and I raise $2 million out the gate and I hire super high caliber people, that can work. But if it's your first run, I think dig deep and work hard.
With limited funds.
Learn and try to do it yourself as much as you can. Don't get money.
Wear all the hats.
Wear all the hats and embrace every one of the hats. Because I think what you'll see is people are like, I don't like that hat, so I'm going to try to get money so I don't have to do it.
Yep.
You're not going to have success with that mentality. You have to embrace all the hats. If you have the success, then you can get rid of that hat finally, and you'll be so happy. But you've got to learn how to do it when you have nothing.
I 100% agree. Startup culture, it's entrepreneurship 101. So everyone listening out there, roll up the sleeves and become a sole entrepreneur until you can have a bit of money under your belt, and then go out and outsource.
Exactly.
Well, Johnny, final question is, where can people reach you to continue the conversation? Where do they go?
Yeah. So livehomeroom.com is our website. You can reach me personally at johnny@livehomeroom.com. Do my best to, respond to everyone the same day. Sometimes successful, sometimes not. But happy to talk to any investors who have any questions about house hacking themselves, or, buying a co-living property with HomeRoom, or anything in between.
Awesome stuff, mate. Well, look, I want to thank you so much for jumping on the show today. I just want to reflect a little bit of the things that I took away from today's show. I think your intuition with solving a problem that I've personally been in a number of cities around the world. I was in London, I was in France. When I first moved to New York, very similar stuff. And it has been an area where real estate has been slow to pick it up, pick up technology. And I think with with COVID, with people living, working remotely, I think your company is at the cutting edge of making it easier for people to have that co-living experience in a way that's not the dirty hostel, living like a teenager, all that sort of stuff, which people would probably have those PTSD moments about, right?
Yeah,
we all do, right? So,
I mean, every time I talk about this with someone, they flash to that, and then like, we have maid service, like we have interior design, like professional interior designers design the space, and so it's an evolution of that. But I mean, the need is, you're right, it's everywhere, and it's one of those big challenges when you go to a new city. And that's what a lot of times people don't go to new places because where do I go? How do I find housing? How do I get a roommate? I can't afford my own apartment.
Right, exactly. Pushing your boundaries, as a change as good as lifestyle. But also, like the other element of the business is that you're partnering with the investor. And I think if you adjust the technology app, I think you wouldn't be as successful because you're not bringing in. You need the people coming through the door to bring you the product, because you're trying to be specific with the single family housing, which is very, very key to the whole business. If you just had the one side of it, I don't think it might be as successful without having both sides of it, because you get to sort of have your cake and eat it too, if that makes sense. So, yeah. No,
you have to, the inventory side and making sure that inventory is just right. It makes the community experience for the tenants just right. And then the investor gets a ton of advantages. So it's a lot to do both sides, but it's the only way that the ecosystem can function in a healthy way.
Love that. Love the ecosystem, my friend. I'm all about it. Well, look, buddy, enjoy the rest of your week, and we will catch up very, very soon.
Sounds good, Reed. Thanks, man.
Well, there you have another cracking episode jam-packed with some incredible advice from Johnny, some really cool stuff he's doing over there with his co-living platform. Remember, go over to Johnny at Live Home Run. Is that right, Johnny?
Room.
Live HomeRoom, livehomeroom.com. Check out all that he's doing online. It's an incredible space. If you're an investor, you want to get involved with it, you've got some small single family properties that you think maybe this might work in the Midwest, give him a call, give him an email. So again, definitely. Thank you all for listening and joining, tuning into the show, because we're all about, increasing your financial IQ on this show. And if you do like this show, the easiest way to give back is to give it a 5-star review on iTunes. And we're going to do this all again next week. So remember, be bold, be brave, and go give life a crack.